2021 Memorial Day weekend. And Memorial Day, just so all know, is a recognition of our veterans who have sacrificed the ultimate sacrifice, given their life for all of us Americans to have the great blessings of our freedom, liberty, justice, supposedly, that we're supposed to have in this nation. But so many sacrifices made, and to them we have to give our thanks and our condolence to their families, because not only have men died in many of the wars which established this nation and sustained this nation, but they're still dying this very day while they're out there sustaining this nation and preserving it and protecting us from the enemies abroad around this world and all the totalitarian regimes that exist around us that have been here ever since this nation has been founded. It's funny today, you listen to the posterity and all these kids today. Education's failing greatly in America, and many don't even know what these holidays are for, or even recognize how new of a nation we as the American people are. When you realize we're only 244 years new in this world, that's it. And around us exists nothing but monarchies, totalitarian nations, supreme rulers, dictators, communist, socialist, and just evil people, that want to destroy this nation. And they've been trying to destroy this nation for the last 244 years it's been established. And that's what we want to touch on today, is the problems that, we're facing in America, and the disgrace that we don't recognize the hard road it took to get here and how many people have given. I mean, when you think of, this is the thing I remember when I was younger, and, you had people, as a kid growing up, I shined shoes in the city, and I used to go over in the diner on Grove Street and Springfield Avenue in Newark, where I grew up, and there would always be World War II veterans hanging out in there, talking about, the World War II, and that would have been the most recent war of my time at the time was Vietnam, going on at that time, and there was many Vietnam veterans as well, returning from Vietnam when I was younger. And the World War II veterans, that would have been the largest of a war, but hanging out with them and listening to them is where I got my guidance to go learn about who I am as an American and our American history. And it's been a long road to get to who we are, and literally millions of people have sacrificed their life over the last 244 years to make this nation possible what it is today, the greatest nation the earth has ever seen, that we know of, in all the written record of 10,000 years of written history that we know of. There's never been such a greater nation in the United States of America and the American people. And the thing of the American people is that we're not just one people of a certain ideology or theology or color or national origin. We're a diverse people of all people from different cultures, backgrounds, ideologies, and theologies, and as well racial issues, if you want to call race. I don't believe in racism. I believe there's only one race, the human race. But people today, the division nation, different colors, they define people as there being different races. I don't know how that being a different color makes you a different race. Like a race there's only one race, the human race. But anyway, on that basis, we're a diversified nation of all that, all combined together, with one like mind. You see, that's what America was founded as, one like mind of all different people. In America, at the time of when it was in 1777, when we would declare our independence, America was a nation that had many people fleeing from because around us in the world, including America, prior to 1777, we were under control by King George, the British king, and it was a tyrannical rule of a monarchy that pretty much enslaved everybody. And, everybody was there to serve the king and the royal family and the elitist of who he appointed as being those of elitist status, like the Tory, which were the kingsmen and what have you, and their families. And everybody else was just commoners who were there to serve these people. And that's the way the whole world order was. The world consisted of demigods. Like in China, you had the emperors who were the demigods, half men and half God proclaimed, right? You had the false, fake God religions like Islam, with the fake God religions, was plagiarized out of Judaism and Christianity and formed a totalitarian regime where it masked itself behind a fake made-up religion. You had the emperors of Japan. You had You had the demigods of different type demigods along the Arabian Peninsula and Egypt. And then you had what was known as the longest standing religions of the Jewish faith, and that of the most recent would have been prior to even Islam, would have been derived out of Judaism, which was Christianity with Jesus Christ. And it was on these principles and tenets that America was founded. Though a lot of today we hear from the Democrats, they don't like to talk about those things in relation to religion or religious principles and values in America, or us being a Judeo-Christian founded nation of which we are. And this is a fact, and undisputable fact by the records and the facts of history make very clear that America is a Judeo-Christian founded nation, and that in truth this nation was established, and everything within this nation was established upon the tenets and principles and values of Christianity. That's just the facts we have to face. But we're gonna look into some of the things we have going and consider what we're looking at today. And we'll go into that. We're here. Today is Memorial Day, and that's what we're talking about today. And it's Memorial Day. It's where we give recognition and we remember the men and women of our military in all branches who fought and sacrificed their life for us to have a life of freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what we have in America. And then there's people, when you think about, I try to think back, and when I do these videos, I try to think of, but what was it made me the way I am? And so, because I know people who know me, they say, God, you're so serious about it. Well, yeah, I'm serious about it. I'm an American. And we're all Americans, and we should be really 100% serious about it. There should be no jokes about this on the news. There should be no comedy skits done about this with like Saturday Night Live. There should be no mockery of it among our government elected officials either. Any government elected official who mocks this day or in any way jokes this day should be immediately removed from our government and publicly disgraced. Because, when you think about, I'll tell you what it is. Like, I remember a day when I was a kid, I was probably about 8 years old, hanging in a diner with my Pop Eddie, who was my middle sister's godfather, and there was several other veterans in there from World War II, and I was talking to them about some things I had been reading on my own about our history. And a matter of fact, I was reading up on James Madison. I remember right, it was on James Madison and some of the things that he was facing in relation to foreign wars, and we got into the subject about fighting for America, and I remember, I believe Harry was the guy's name, Harry. Harry was a World War II veteran. He knew my Pop, and he knew Benny, another guy that was always every day. Benny and Pop went in there, they had their coffee and butter roll. That's what I used to do. And he was talking, and I remember I said to him, what I asked him, I said, what makes you go to the war? What would make you go and do this? Because these guys didn't get drafted; they enlisted. They wanted to go fight, and that was what we were talking about. They didn't get drafted, and they were explaining to me about the draft and how that works and whatever. We got into that conversation off of speaking about James Madison somehow about the military, and Harry was telling me. He said he went in because here's what he said to me. He said, think about the time when this country was founded. And just imagine in your mind, if you can understand at your age, he said to me, a man who is standing looking at a military that has guns and he knows he's going to die. He knows he's going to die. But he looks back at people who he loves and he cares about. And he loves and cares about them so much, and he wants them to have the freedom and the God blessings that come with life that God gives us so greatly that he is willing to run toward that line of death and die, believing that if he gives his life, they will have life with freedom. And he literally does that. There's no benefit. Understand, and I get what Harry was telling me that day. Understand, and this is what we all have to understand. When you have a military man or woman who is in the military, and they're in a battle, and they're fighting that fight, in their mind, why they're fighting is, and I've been told this by many veterans, what's in their mind is their family, the people they love, and this nation, and understanding that if the people they're fighting get past them, They're going to hurt the people they love. They're going to hurt the American people. They're going to take from the American people their freedom and liberty. So these people are willing to go to that front line and literally put their life on the line and give their very life. There's no doubt on Memorial Day, it's the ones that we know we're recognizing gave their very life for us to be protected and be able to live. There's no gain for a person who gives their life. That's it. Their life is over. You can't say they did it for the glory. You can't say they did it for the reward or the money. There's no reward for once you're killed. That's it. You've given all you have. You've given your life. And there's nothing that they're not going to see the parade. They're not going to see the anything. They're gone. They gave their life. And when we realize that there is literally millions of people, all of us as Americans have to be grateful and understand that the very blessings we have this day come from those people, those men and those women, those children in the founding time, because they were young kids that founded this country. Most of the people fighting in the Revolutionary War and even the Civil War were teenagers between the ages of 13 to 16 years old. These were kids who were willing to fight and die for what they believed in that American vision of what we call our American dream. And they believed and they envisioned in that dream a free people. And you know, I always vision in my mind when I watch and I see these reenactments and stuff. Sometimes I like to go to the reenactments, I watch them, and I'm thinking in my mind that, you know, these reenactments are probably very similar in reality to what really took place. And you can only imagine that when I think of what Harry said and my pop-up said and the other veterans said in that diner through the years when I grew up there talking with those men, and even veterans I know this day, some of incredible men who have expressed to me about why they went into World War II or Vietnam and why they did what they did. I imagine, like, for those who died as well, they must have been, in their mind, envisioning what we are today, a nation of free people. And they were willing, they were like in their mind, and they must have, you know, so many that have lived, I know, that have seen combat, that I've had the honors of meeting, and they told me that, you know, in the battle of it, their prayer was always, God, let my life be worthy, that, you know, it gives to what it is I'm willing to die for. Let my family have freedom, let my kids have freedom, let my uncles, my aunts, my brothers, my sisters, that's what they were willing to die for. So that freedom from their death, life would be given freely to those that they were fighting and loved and protected. And that's us, the American people today. We owe it to these people. And we owe it that every day we get to enjoy this freedom and liberty, because there's men and women out there to this day, right now in our military, putting their life on the line. Okay, and some, not all, maybe, you know, there's different levels of what honorable is within. I mean, you know, this has been told to me by that of military. There's people who go in because they really love this country. They understand why they're going in. They understand the threat to this nation, and they are willing to go in, fight, and die to preserve this nation as it was founded, because they know their Constitution, they know the Declaration of Independence, they know the history of this nation, and they are just incredibly brave and courageous people that definitely are intentionally placed in time by God, in my opinion, because you know, I've been blessed to know so many veterans and so many military people. It's just you know, it's incredible, the people I've met in my life and the influence they've had on me. It's just incredible. And I say I'm honored to know each and every one of them. I'm honored with some of them I know even from high school, who I know, and I remember you know, it's funny because I can think back to some people I remember from high school, and I can remember even in high school thinking, you know, that guy, though he was not in the military yet, like you had guys who wanted to be in the military, or they acted like they wanted to go in the Army, and then there was guys who never even said a thing about it, but you could tell, like, I remember there was a guy, Vernon, wanted to be in the military. He was talking about that was the first thing he was going to do when he got out of high school, was enlist, and, you know, it was his goal and whatever. But, you know, I remember talking with him about other kids we've seen, and I can remember looking at several kids in high school thinking, I know for a fact that kid would be a good soldier, that kid would be a good soldier. You know, from just experience of wisdom, the shared wisdom from the guys I knew growing up, I could see in the character of them that they had that true character of Americanism. You know what I mean? But anyway, this is what Memorial Day is about, remembering those men and women who sacrificed. And today I usually pray for all the families that, you know, condolence to them, and that God give them peace and contentment with the sacrifices of their loved ones who gave their life for us to have this freedom and liberty. We owe that family as well an unpayable debt for sacrificing their loved ones for us all to have our freedom. And sadly, though, in spite of all this here, we have to consider the ungrateful, and that's the sad state of affairs we got going on in this nation right now. This day is a grieving day in a sense, because it is, and the sad part is there's, I think of the men and women who fight for us in our military kind of as like the time with Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah. He kept pleading with God that, if there's just one good man, can we spare the city, And with the men and women who fight today, it must be like that time of then with Lot, with Sodom and Gomorrah, because these men today, our military men and women, are treated so disrespectful, not only by society, of the posterity, the youth of this nation, but by our own disgraceful, inhumane, undeserving government representation that we allow in our nation, in this government. We have become a nation of fools for what we're allowing in this nation. And one of the things is Kamala Harris is blasted for enjoy the long weekend tweet with no mention of Memorial Day. And this is something very typical of the Democrats. They are really a people, sadly, I really blast the Democrats often. And I do this, and this is something I want to touch on in this video, because I have people that say to me, "Man, you hate Muslims, and man, you hate Democrats." I want to clear something up. I don't hate nobody. I'm angry and upset that there are people in this country that are in great, powerful positions that don't even know the Declaration of Independence or the United States Constitution or the founding history of this nation and who we are as the American people, but yet they are benefiting and they have the great rewards of blessings of this nation upon them, unlike that of the majority of the people, of the American people who sustain this nation. They are far more greater blessed in their elected positions than most, and they take it all for granted, and they're so ungrateful they don't even take the time to study and understand. And somebody like her is, she claims to be an African. She's not an African, she's Jamaican, but she is obviously of mixed origin. And, somebody of her of mixed origin whose family came here as immigrants and were able to embrace and become Americans, and bless her with being American-born citizen here as an American. And for the disgrace for her to be a Democrat in the Democratic Party and have such a lack of understanding of history and the founding principles and values of us as an American people. Talk about right here, I'll tell you what Kamala Harris is. She's a perfect example of what taking for granted is. That's what this woman does. She takes everything for granted in this country, and she is a mockery to this country and a disgrace to our government and the American people and immigrants. Because I'll tell you what, I know many Mexican, Cuban, especially Cubans, are like, wow, they really, those Cubans who came here for the right reasons and know why they're here, they love America. I've met Cubans I know love America greater than that of many Americans born here and who have an ancestry here since the founding of this nation. There's some immigrants from that Cuban origin, boy, I'll tell you, they just love this country. And the same falls true with Mexicans and Spanish and Greek and, all different nationalities of people who come here for true intent. Because in the original founding of our nation, we were not really a nation of all welcome here. We had set terms in our Declaration of Independence of which, if you accepted those terms, then you were welcome here. But if you agreed with that of the totalitarian regimes around the world, well, no, we didn't want you here, okay? And we didn't accept you. We didn't care where you came from, what your national origin was, what your cultural values were, your philosophies were, your theology was. As long as you understood what the American principles and values were, what we founded this nation upon, you agree with that, then you were welcome here. Okay, but you had to come here to assimilate to that of Americanism, that of American ideology, that of American principles and values. You had to assimilate, okay? And we were not like the Democrats try to put out, oh, welcome, come and bring everything of your foreign country with you. No, that's not the idea. But anyway, as we go forward here, we see the problems we're having right now with the Democrats as well. And I do pick on the Democrats, and I do say a lot about the Muslims, but let me just say this. A Muslim, in the perspective of what I'm looking at, is a person, a human being like any other human being. God loves all people equally, okay? And here's the way I see it. God creates all men, as we declare in our Declaration of Independence, all men are created equal. All humanity is created equal. But understand this, after the point of creation, equal to what is up to them, this is the wisdom God gives me to consider. I take these things to God. And that's what God has given me to consider, to understand that God has created all of us equal. After the point of creation, equal to what is up to us of our own free will choosing. And some people choose to be totalitarian. Some people choose to be no good, disgraceful, evil, pedophile perverts. Some people choose to just be queer in nature perverts. Some people choose to be, serial killers. Some people just, like Hitler, choose to be just evil dictators who slaughter and kill mass millions of people. And these people, like I say, these are free will choices made by people. And that's, when I look at a Muslim, understand Muslims are reflective of a thing we need to touch on about all the principles and the values we're facing today on the issues that we have. You see, when you look at a Muslim, it's kind of like what it was for Israelites before Moses showed up. You see, the time in history is important, and we're told this over and over. I remember all my life growing up, and obviously today it's not, because today everybody wants to keep people dumbed down and ignorant to the realities of what's going on. But with history, those who are aware of it understand. It's a constant repeat when you forget it. But those who know it understand it when they look back, like with Israel. And we have these issues now going on with Israel, Palestine, whatever, so I'm going to touch on these things. When Israel, back in the time of Moses, they had been groomed into slavery. When they were first showing up there with Abraham, back in the founding times of where Israel was on its migration to find its own place in its nation of Israel, they wound up in Egypt, and the Egyptians welcomed them in, and you had what's known, I believe, over there is called the Oak of Abraham, which was on the outskirts of Egypt, and then the Egyptians slowly invited them in. But eventually, the Egyptians became dependent upon the Israelites for doing most of the chores and the tasking of labor within Egypt at that time. And the pharaohs of the demigods of Egypt as well enjoyed the benefits of them. And eventually, as generations went on, they stripped them of their culture, their values, their God, their religion, their principles, and they indoctrinated them with Egyptian ideology of that they were just commoner slaves there to serve the demigods. They wanted to convince them that the pharaohs were the demigods, like these were half men, half gods. And until Moses came along, they weren't waking up to the reality of that, no, this is not the way it's supposed to be, and there is no demigod, that guy's a fake, and what have you, and Moses awoke in them and led them out. But we see in history, this happens time and time again. We see it many times with Greece, with its theological gods of all different kinds of theological gods, and demigods as well, and theologies and what have you, and how many rises and falls such a nation like that has taken. But we also see, in the midst of all of the last written 10,000 years of written history we know of, we see many people of tribes coming out, of people who pursue that of what is self-evident in nature. What is we have many theologists that thinkers, great thinkers, and people of social study, and people of psychology itself and the anatomy of how we're thinking, and they weigh the odds against the good and the evil of the world, and they try to establish some kind of principle and value. And this is where governments start to come into play. Usually the guy who's the outspoken, and he's the guy who's demanding and willing to stand up and fight, and he's got a bunch of men willing to fight with him for the values and principles of what the majority of the people agree with, he becomes back in those that we used to call the king or the tribal leader and what have you. And this is how we went forward. Now, these people, like I say, this all goes by indoctrination. You have evil leaders and rulers as well who come in and they afflict humanity. And this is in reference to what I'm speaking about when we talk about Muslims and Democrats. There are people who are susceptibly easily cower to the threat of any kind of harm to them. And these dictators and totalitarians of the world, they know that. And they prey on that fear of people. And the majority of Democrats, that's what I say, like I know many of Democrats today, like the voting public Democrats, are good people. They have good hearts. For the majority, they just want, nice, peaceful life, and they want everybody to have good, and but then you have the real Democrat. Now, the real Democrat is not like the majority of the Dinos. I call them Dino, Democrat name only, because anybody who knew the truth of the Democratic Party wouldn't be a Democrat unless you're just a self-willing, wanting, evil, no good, disgusting, inhumane person. Would you want to really be a Democrat? Because the founding ideology of the Democratic Party and its principles and values is that of an elitist status of an evil, no good, disgusting, inhumane people of self-proclaimed elitism. They originated out of the Tories, the Kingsmen of the, and everybody else in the world is there to serve them. So, I mean, it's obvious the Democratic Party people, the voters who support this, and they're racist people, the true Democrats. They're racist. They're disgusting people. And it's amazing. Like I say, when you look at my history videos, people just aren't aware. And I talk to many Democrats who claim to be Democrats, and when you start to tell them the truth of the history of the Democrat, they're like, no, that's the Republicans, or no, that's got to be somebody else. No, that's not what, and they don't realize, yeah, it is. I'm sorry. The Democratic Party was born out of that of the Tories in 1828. Okay, they were the Tories. And then it became the Democrats. It was the Democrats who caused the Civil War in this country. It was the Democrats who founded the Ku Klux Klan, the Red Jackets. It was the Democrats who started assassinating our presidents, starting with Abraham Lincoln. Okay, and the Democrats who have terrorized this nation ever since the founding of this nation, from the time they were the Tories to the Democrats to this very day. They still are doing the very same thing. They're the most divisive, evil, disruptive, terrorist organization in this country that has been keeping this country divided and unable to progress into its goal for now 244 years. The whole stopping stone is the true Democratic establishment, not the voting public of the ignorant people that don't even understand the reality of what the political ploy is in the game of these people who are the true Democrats. And I don't hate the people because the people are just ignorant. I just want to wake the people up. I want to tell them the truth and hopefully have them go and do their own due diligence and wake up to be, oh my God, realize the truth and realize that the true establishment of the Democratic elitists that are in the government itself at the top heads are not good people. And they've never been good people. And history makes that clear. The same thing resides with Muslims. I don't hate the Muslim people. Muslim just means submitted person. If you were to interpret it in English, it just means a person who is submitted to Islam. And what that is a servant, a slave. Okay, and that's what Islam is. It's a totalitarian regime that enslaves its people and controls them with a fake, made-up religion of what I'll do a video on to prove there's no. It's very easy to disprove Islam to be a real religion. And at the time of when Islam rose, back in 640 AD, it's pretty clear it was a common practice among world leaders and nations at that time to create like fallacy religions and then create a totalitarian regime, because the idea was like to create yourself a demigod or what have you, or create a new god or something like that, and then self-appoint yourself the authority by the God you create. So, because people will question each other, but they don't question God, and then you can enforce laws like, they tried to, you had the kings of England tried to totalitarianize Christianity with blasphemy and whatever. And blasphemy existed way before that with all the demigods and everything. This was all an organized way of using religions as a way of totalitarianizing societies. And these people were very aware of it, and Islam was just another during that time of typical uprise of that kind of an ideology forming under totalitarianism. The Muslims themselves are just indoctrinated people who are deprived, just like Democrats, deprived of the reality of truth to history and the morals and values of reality to who the actual leaders of the Islamic nations are. The Islamic leaders are the self-appointed, proclaimed elitist scumbags who enslave all these people and get these people to do their bidding for them under the fallacy of a fake God. And they got up to the point, they control a totalitarianism. It's a full totalitarian state, the Islamic ideology, because it controls everything. It controls what they'll eat, how they'll dress, what God they must worship, when they'll pray, how they marry. Every aspect of their life, what they'll do for a living. It's most of the Islamic nations are not like, you have the Republic of Iran. There's no such thing as the Republic of Iran when you're talking about an Islamic state, because it's a socialist state of totalitarianism. It's not a republic in any way. The people really have no say at all. A republic is that of the people. And these people try to mimic just to associate themselves with it. But so understand, I don't hate the people. I hate the ideology. I hate totalitarianism. I hate monarchies. I hate anyone who tries to claim themselves to be an elitist or superior to that of any other human, as if they were some kind of, special person. I don't believe in royal blood. I don't believe in all that crap. I'm an American. I don't believe in that. I believe all men are created equal. That's what I believe. Everybody's equal. And I understand God's wisdom in that everybody is created equal, but after the point of creation, equal to what is up to them. And then with Muslims, like the leaders of the Muslims, I can't stand these people because I know what they're doing with their totalitarianism to all those Muslims they enslave under it. And I see the cause and the harm and the affliction of damage that's being done right here in my own country now out of the ignorance of people allowing Islam in America. So it's not that I hate the people. I hate the ideology of totalitarianism. I hate the dictatorship of that of the elitism. I hate that of the superialism of those people who are heads of these organizations that are causing the problems we face today. And it just so happens that the majority of them fall under democratic, which is the most of these government regimes around the world outside of America are democracies of Democrat. America is not a democracy, we're a republic. I mean, the ignorance in this country to people understanding these things is just scary at this point, scary. But thank God I do know and I do believe that there are tens of millions of Americans out there who are as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable than myself, about the realities of the truth of our history and our founding principles and values and that of our true standing as American people. And I have to, with all faith in God, believe that those people will sustain and maintain this nation going forward. That I just have to. But like I say, we have many issues with the Democrats right now disgracing this nation and our military. This was an Army vet's unexpected meeting with Biden after sending a thank you letter for ending trans bans in the military that Donald Trump implemented, which I'm sorry. We have the Democrats now pretty much are complicit with any minority group. It's kind of, ironic. In ignorance of understanding how things work in politics and government, obviously in world standing outside of that of the Americans. See, now if we kept things American principles, we wouldn't be having these problems. But the Democrats are like a freaking rope thrown into a gear of the American ideology. Because they're democracy. They're a democratic democracy. They're not a republic. They don't believe in republics. They never did. They were always the enemies within, and they still are. And they have these minorities. They prey on the minorities of like colored people, immigrant people, gay people, which are mentally ill people. And, and this is self-evident. I mean, we should not be allowing people who have an issue identifying themselves. They can't accept their own identity to who they are, and they're in a delusional state of mind so great that they reject what they see in the mirror of themselves. They deny their own selves. They can't even figure out who they are themselves. So what reasonable, sound mind person would trust such a person with powers and authorities to be able to make decisions for that of millions of other people's lives when they can't even make a decision in their own life to who the hell they are? Understand, this is something that's been known for all of human history as what it is. It's self-evident. This is self-evident. And it's a danger to society, and it makes our nation a mockery. But then again, this is the Democrats' goal. When you would say, why would the Democrats want it? The goal has been to destroy this country. The Democrats, they were founded out of the British Loyalist Tories. They didn't want America to be founded. They never wanted America to be founded. They had plans since the beginning of this nation to overthrow this nation, which we go back to 1861, where we had the Civil War. The Democrats were the cause of the Civil War. They actually rose up and tried to overthrow the nation then, and they still continue that battle to this day. They try to decay and deteriorate this nation, and they're doing a great job right now, I'm telling you right now. But it's really not true. The majority of the social media, the news networks, and whatever make it look like they're doing so great. But in truth, the pandemic that we're experiencing in this country is called democratic democracy, with these idiot Democrats and these disgraceful people who are trying to destroy this country. But it's only on the East Coast in certain liberal states right now, which is sadly many of our original founding states. They've turned them into a disgraceful mockery. When we look at what Cuomo's done up there in New York to the state of New York, one of our founding states, this guy is a disgusting disgrace. In my opinion, he should be really thoroughly investigated and then, if found guilty, tried and hung for treason against this country, as well as those involved in California and as many as well in these other liberal states with these governors and what have you. These people are committing outrageous treason that is costing the American people's lives and going to set us back tens of multiple decades right now and afflict and cause harm to that of tens of millions of American posterity. It's just a shame what's going on and we're allowing to go on. And when the reality, when you look at how many people are going to be afflicted by it, it's just disgraceful. But as we move forward, like here, we're looking at some of the problems we have. I remember when I was younger, I wanted to enlist in the Army, and I got denied because I have a heart murmur, and medical reasons they didn't want me, and I've tried several times. I wanted to go in, but I remember you had to take like a test. It was and I had no problem passing the test. But I remember the first time it was like a civics test. You had to pass a test too on like the Constitution a little bit and your civil rights and duties and things like that, and why give some kind of ideology that you understood. Today, that's no longer required. These people enlisting today, and this is a sad thing because the thing of what it is you have to take an oath to the Constitution when you enlist. And this is the problem we have in this country right now. It doesn't just stem what is getting. It's not military up until now has been pretty well handled. I mean, I know military. Like I have a friend of mine that's former Army Ranger, and he is a federal marshal. Man, I'm telling you what, he knows American history. He knows American theology. He knows American principles and values. And he knows himself as an American, and he's an American. I can tell that, and that's the attitude usually of most of the veterans I knew. Outside of I have met many veterans, which I still give them respect. If they were drafted, or they went in because of criminal matters, or they went in because of they had no alternative in life or whatever. They still went in knowing that, hey, I have no life here, but I'm willing to give my life there. So you have to respect them and give them the honor where honor's due. So, but those men who went in knowing why they're going in, and they had true American principles and values, they learned their history, they understand the founding principles and concept of this nation, and really devote their life to that as true Americans, they're the most honorable of the honorable. So, that's all I can say about that, And, but we have this problem because not only in the military, police right now, right? Understand the military, the police, and all their consented to powers and authority are given them by the Constitution. What idiocy is it of us as a nation, as a people, that we allow police officers to take a position where they have to swear an oath to a Constitution they don't even know. They've never even read. If you go on YouTube and you look up police audits right now, and look up like constitutional audits, and watch how these guys are showing and proving how the police have never read the Constitution, don't know the Constitution, and are just out there drunk on power and authority, not even knowing where they're. I mean, think how idiot you are if you're a cop, right? You're a cop. I don't care if you're a state trooper, sheriff, whatever. You're a cop, right? And everything of your ability to arrest somebody, charge somebody, your ability to have authority to detain somebody, to search someplace, to seize property, every power you have is consented and given to you by the Constitution. But you think the Constitution is a joke. You know who's a real joke? You are. You are. Because you're not really a cop. You're a thug. You're a thug. When you're a cop and you're swearing an oath to the Constitution and you don't even know it, you're just a dangerous gang member now. And then society's right on this. What's being said in the poverty-stricken societies where the issues are going on with the police, they're absolutely right. If you got a bunch of cops who swear an oath, you don't understand the Constitution and that you're there to defend the people, not the government, and that you're there to uphold the law of the Constitution, which is the law of the land, of which the Constitution makes clear, and the Supreme Court has made clear, that any law enacted by any legislative or elected body that's subservient to that or perverse to that of the Constitution is void. Okay? And you as the police, the sheriff, the state police, are supposed to have the knowledge of the Constitution to a point and where when the legislative of a state or a county commission or any mayor or governor or what have you issues a law, you should have knowledge of the Constitution to know if that subverts the Constitution, that law, and if it does, tell and inform them by your power consented by the people that no, you won't do and enforce that. Okay? Then you would be a damn good cop. That's the way cops used to be. Today it just amazes me with the things I see. Like I see all now with the Second Amendment issue. I see all these cops going around, and now you have Second Amendment audits where people in open carry states and where you're allowed to have your guns. Which I can't believe there's states you can't have a gun. The Second Amendment is very clear; it shall not be infringed. But yet, obviously, this government's infringing it. And understand this. This is what I'm saying. Any governor, commissioner, mayor, anybody in an elected position of Congress, the House of Representatives, who agrees with any kind of law against the Second Amendment or gun law, You're a treasonous scumbag. You shouldn't be in a representative place of this American government because you're in breach and contempt of your own oath to the Constitution, which clearly you don't know. And that's pretty clear. The majority of people who don't know it are Democrats. But the Republicans do know it, but that's not saying the Republicans are any better. The Republicans, for the majority in their elected positions, are just as disgraceful. Because we don't have any more true, real Americanized Americans like that have American principles and values. I mean, we have Republican ass-sitter, worthless, lazy turnies that are just nothing but paper-brain idiots that don't even know the history themselves of this country and probably only know cherry-picking parts of the Constitution where they just read it to make themselves a little speech to sound good. But they're not doing nothing either. Nobody's doing. The Democrats are doing a lot of real damage. Republicans are doing absolutely nothing. Nothing but pointing the fingers at Democrats. That's all they're doing. Okay, you got like some that are trying, like little Marguerite Green. That little girl's trying. She's trying to get something done to where something real gets done. But none of the real Republicans, none of the elected and trusted Republicans are even getting behind her. Because they know the Democrats are controlling. This is all, I'll scratch your back, you scratch my back. And it's pretty clear after what we've seen happen with Donald Trump being run out of the White House like the coward he was. I can't believe I'm so disappointed in Donald Trump, but because he cowered down. He had the chance to save this nation. But now we're going to wind up, it looks like, decades ahead more suffering. Millions more of Americans being deprived of their rights to freedom and liberty and the pursuit of happiness in this country because Donald Trump was a coward and walked away and handed the nation back over to the very criminal establishment we elected him to remove. I can't take away, the man was a great president. He did incredible things. He demonstrated the truth of what somebody with true business knowledge and how this country should be run. He gave a great example of what a working president looks like. But in the end, he did not have the true spirit to protect and defend and sustain America is what it was founded. He handed us back over to the criminal elements of this corrupt, disgusting, disgraceful, treasonous government and walked away. Why? I don't know. I guess he was the wrong man. Obviously he was. I respect the man. I can't take away what he did, but like I say, all he did was worthless because it's all being undone as I speak right now. Daily, it's being undone. Some of the things we're talking about right now it's so self-evident. But when we look at these things right here, some of the issues we're facing right now I want to touch on. We have how did Hamas grow its arsenal to strike Israel? And we have the issues right now going on with Israel. And today, I listen to people as I've been driving around and I say to people, about the things going on, the bombing in Israel. And I'll ask questions like, people don't have a clue. They don't have a clue what the Palestine-Israel conflict is about. They don't know where it's... And I had one guy when I said to him, do you know, it actually goes back quite a ways. I said it goes, this is something that was initiated by the Muslims, where the Muslims implemented a Palestinian state with a Palestinian right to that of the Islamic Muslim people, claiming that they had a right to that over Israel. And the Jews are their enemies, the Muslims. The Muslims have declared the Jews their enemies, and that it's their goal by their fake God Allah that they must eliminate the Jews off the earth. That's their genocide them. That's what they tried to do in World War II in their coalition with Hitler. All the Muslims were allied with the Nazi Party and members of the Nazi Party during World War II. And it was their goal to genocide the Jewish race. And this is undeniable when you look at what happened in World War II. It's a fact. But what we're going to look at is like what people don't understand is where it starts with America being involved with Palestine and Israel is what Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, okay, because, as we know today, who are the allies of the Democrats? Muslims, royal family of Canada and Great Britain, right? The monarchies, because who are they? They stem off of the Tories, the true original. The American Democrat public are just nothing but ignorant idiots that don't know anything of the history, don't know anything of the politics, don't know anything of the culture values of American. They're just people who go along and take for granted everything America offers them, not with a clue in the world, and they don't care to even spend a nickel of a moment of time to try to understand and comprehend the reality. Because if any of them took just 10 minutes and looked up and realized the evil of the Democratic Party, and they would realize, because most of them I talk to, that's the thing. If I get to talk to a Democrat and I tell them the truth and they start looking it up, because I love technology today with the phone, you can start and they can look it up on that Google thing. They can just look it up and they can find it right there and it's bam, right in their face. They can't deny it. Because usually before I would be like, I don't have nothing. Now I can tell them, hey, pull out your phone, look it up. And they can look it up. And then when they realize most of them decide they're going to go independent. It's a progression. They don't want to go Republican because they've been so indoctrinated that Republicans are bad people, and they don't realize that Republicans are the founders of this country. They don't even realize that in Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution only consents to that of a Republican form of government in this country. That's who we are. We're a republic of the people, all people, created equal, one people, under God, indivisible. You know what I'm saying? That's what one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all. That's who we are, the American. That's a republic. But, they've been brainwashed to think that a republic is something evil. And they're so lazy in mind and effort, they don't even go to fact check or do due diligence to find out if what they're being told is the truth. But it all starts here with Palestine and Israel issues. Was the Democrats' long-standing ally with the Muslims. And the reason they were long-standing ally with the Muslims because the Democrats were always in favor of slavery. And the majority of all the slaves that were ever brought into the American continent were brought here by the kings of Great Britain. And the plantations were all being managed by what was known as the Tories, who were the kingsmen. They were the elitists of the king's society that he picked, and he would appoint them like governors, and then they get to sit on the porch and watch the slaves labor, and they were the manufacturers, like the managers of the plantations who managed the slaves and everything and the produce, and got it all shipped back over to the great kings of Britain so they could make their money off of the farming districts. And after the Revolutionary War, the Tories claimed those lands as their own land, and they claimed the slaves as their property, and they continued on that way, in spite of that the Republicans wanted slavery abolished in this nation, which that led to a near 70-year battle between the Tories and the American Patriots, until finally it came to a head in 1861 with the Civil War, nearly 90 years later, and we finally beat the hell out of the Tory Democrats, and we ended slavery in this country. But, Woodrow Wilson in the early 1900s, he's the guy here. What he did was, because they, like I said, they were the British loyalists. This is who the Democrats stem from. Their goal and objective was to look out for Britain in World War I and the issues that were going on between the Palestinian Muslims and the Israelite Jews. And most people don't realize World War II is just a continuation. Everybody in history, the way I understood in high school, it was that, they teach history in the sense of like wars end, like World War I started and ended, World War II started and ended, Vietnam. Look, these wars never ended. World War I was a continuation war of the Ottoman Empire's rise of world domination and war that was going on for near, 200 years before World War I even emerged to become what it was. It was all a pre-planned thing that was going on with alliances of world totalitarian rulers and dictators that were planning these things for near 200 years before, even before America existed. So, this is just reality. And when we look, we can see, you had what was like here, you got the thing I have here. This is on Woodrow Wilson, rising above the self-determined. Now, some of these things they write about Wilson, they try to make him out to sound like a goddamn hero. For the Jews, but because everybody knows that America is a Christian Judeo-founded nation, and the Democrats, they play that role. They're like the Muslims. The Muslims had Tiaka where they can lie and deceive and say whatever they need to say to further their agenda. Democrats are the same way. They'll lie, say, and deceive and write and do whatever. Like when you look at Lyndon B. Johnson during the 1960s, this was supposedly the civil rights, Democratic civil rights president in 1960, right? The guy, go read up on Lyndon B. Johnson, was an understanding, he was a Ku Klux Klan member out of Texas. So understand all that front, fake, bull stuff he was telling people on the TV, behind the scenes he was putting on his hood, going out and lynching black people. So get real. That's a real Democrat right there. They'll lie. You can't trust what they say, and you definitely can't trust what they write up about themselves, because they always make themselves out to try and look like the heroes, like with the Charlie Wilson War thing they did back in the 70s. That's just another disgraceful thing where you see these Democrats and what they do, and that's all involved in this too, where they were arming the Muslims to be able to keep these proxy wars going over there, to keep the constant conflict going, and also to get to where we are today, where they could use them as a militant attack against that of the very American people, what they're doing right now. When you look at it from 2000, or actually from 1991 with the first World Trade Center attack, going forward all the way to the second one in 2001 under Bush, and then even after that with Obama and up till Donald Trump, over an estimated 7,000 Americans killed by Islamic Muslims right here on our own American home ground. Slaughtered, murdered, killed Americans right here by our known and long-established declared enemies. Since our founding time, the Muslims have been declared the enemies of America and the American people because they're a totalitarian foreign regime. The first 4 administrations of our governments, with George Washington, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, all declared them the enemies of America and the American people because they were a known foreign totalitarian regime. But idiocy of forgetting history and allowing an enemy within, like the Democrats, well, this is where we're at, and we're going to continue on with people being deprived. But Woodrow Wilson was more allied with that, which evidence of fact shows, to the Muslims. We had the Balfour Declaration, the Muslims, and as well Britain. As you can see, the Balfour Declaration by Wilson, he supported this. This gave Britain the power and authority over Palestine and Israel. Okay, so understand this. Understand this. He didn't do anything for Israel or the Jews, but what he did do was looking out for the interests of that of what the Democrats are loyal to, Great Britain. He was looking to give Britain the authority over Palestine with the Balfour Declaration, and that's exactly what happened. They manipulated the Jews to believe that, this would be good, this whatever, they divided and have you, how it went. I'll include some links in the things so you can read up on some of these things. But understand, this is the other thing I'm trying to say. Muslims comprise of 85% of the population of the West Bank, when including Israel settlers, and 99% of the population of the Gaza Strip. The largest domination among Palestinian Muslims are Sunnis at 85%, mostly Shafi'i, and another 14% of non-denominational. So you understand, the Muslims were, the Palestinians are kind of like a sect that was created by the Muslims of Islamics, okay, to use as a militant diversion, okay. It was and they're Muslim. The majority of Palestinians are Muslims, and the Jews is their enemies, them all Muslims. So it was just a created state to cause a division that would create a constant, constant fighting on the Jews, constant pursuit on the Jews. And that's what they indoctrinate these people to believe that they're entitled to this land. They've indoctrinated them with a fallacy of that they, for all of time, have been, that God gave them this and what have you, which the facts of world history and truth show. It's all lies. It's totally lies. It was all made up by the Muslims just to create this division and create this constant chaotic state of war and battle and fighting and ongoing pursuit of constant pressure and attack on the Jews. That's all it was. And as we go forward here, we'll progress and look a little bit at that history and get the truth of that. Now understand, in World War I, the Ottoman Empire was the Islamic Muslims. This is who was being fought in World War I. They were on their jihad for world domination, as they've been for the last 1,400 years. As I said, they're a totalitarian regime that pursues world domination and control. Their goal is to enslave all of humanity, of every nation, under the control of the Islamic leaders as their slaves. And then everybody has to submit to them, and that's it. One dominant world ruler, Islamic leaders, everybody else slaves. That's their goal. And in World War I, it was the Islamic Ottoman empires who were the axis to this, not our allies. And in World War I, in truth, though, America, though we fought with our allies in defense, we never actually declared war on anyone in World War I. And then the war doesn't end. They retreat, and then it continues on outside of America. We gained some things in it, and then we wound up in the future losing it. Like out of World War I, one of the great gains we had was Australia became an allied nation to America that nearly took our constitution, put Australia on it, and verbatimed it 100% for Australia, and they became a great constitutional republic with a verbatim constitution just like the United States of America. So that was one gain out of it, but in time the Democrats deteriorate that too. But we see here the Israeli-Palestine conflict, a historical essay. I'll include this if you want to read it. You got to be careful, like I said. Remember, when reading history, there's his story and then there's the truth. If you want to know the truth, you got to really dig for it. You got to search for it. I don't have a preference to how I want things to be. I just want to know the truth, and that's really all I care about is the truth. And the truth of the matter is that the whole thing of the conflict is a created, manifested lie by the Muslims in order to create a superialistic position where they try to claim themselves to be more superior and in authoritarian position with that of the same God as the Jews. Well, what's their God is not the same God of the Jews. Allah, the God the Islamic Muslims as a fake God, and this is undeniable when you read the Quran, but that's another video. But so, as I say, the conflict, though, starts with Woodrow Wilson, and then it pursues here to Franklin D. Roosevelt. Now, Roosevelt, again, just like Wilson, they try to portray him off as if he was a friend to the enemies. The only true friend to the Israelite Jewish people were the Americans, because America was a Christian-founded nation, and we were also a Judeo-Christian founded nation. And we're going to get into that as we go forward, so I'm not going to go too far into that right now. But under Franklin D. Roosevelt, this guy picked up where Woodrow Wilson left off in the alliance with that of the Islamic Muslims, not only just Great Britain. We would, under Woodrow Wilson, we had the United States in search of a policy, Franklin D. Roosevelt, and Palestine. When you look at this here, you realize he was kind of the same, on the same basis of what Woodrow Wilson was. He was looking to appease Great Britain and the Islamic Muslims, who were the true allies of the Democratic Party. And as I said, the reason they were always allies since before this nation was even founded, the Muslims and the Democrats, prior to being the Democrats, were the Tories. They were allies because the majority of 99% of all the slaves that the Tory and the British got from Africa, they purchased from the Islamic Muslims, because the Islamic Muslims were the founders of the black African slave trade. They literally started the black African slave trade near 1,200 years before America even existed, when they invaded North Africa in like mid 640 AD. Okay, so that's where that all goes back to. And if you read my history videos or you watch my history videos, there's videos on that, you can see it. But here's some things like here you have Franklin Roosevelt administration. Great and good friend. I'm going to include some of these things here so you can get an understanding of how Republicans viewed the state of Israel, and then you see how Democrats, and that's what I say, when you look at the evidence of the things and the statements made between Democrats and Republicans, as like what we're seeing right now, you'll see that Republicans have always been what we have been, with allied to Israel and the Jewish people. And the Democrats have always been who they've been, allied to Great Britain and that of the Muslim people. And the Democrats are the enemies within, and they've always been the enemies, and it's pretty clear right now they're still the enemies within because of what they're doing right now. But like I say, I'll include some things. When we go back and we talk about right here with Franklin Roosevelt, some of the things that came out of him, like, do you know in 1934 it was under Franklin Roosevelt that we got the first mosque allowed in America. It was the first time that our government, and he did this under the goose of the Depression and the nation being in hardship and the economy collapse and everything, he went ahead for the first time and allowed the totalitarian foreign regime to establish its ideology, a religious ideology practice here in the United States, the building of the first mosque, under a guy named Fard, okay, who was a white Arab who came here to deceive the black Africans. And the Democrats were on board with this. There's a whole FBI file by Hoover on this with FDR and how they collaborated with this guy Fard and the Islamic Muslims to confound the black Americans in hopes of being able to, and actually they succeeded. They wanted to find a way to make all black Americans hate all white Americans, because they had to find a way to break the alliance between white and black Republicans. You see, because at that time, all black Americans were Republicans, because they understood that Republicans were the Unionists who fought to end slavery in the Civil War and who had been abolishing slavery since they claimed their independence during the Revolutionary War. The Republicans in the founding of this nation started abolishing slavery from 1777 forward. The first state to do that was Vermont in 1777. Look it up. It's the facts. But FDR was the one who allowed Islam into America. The Democrats did this. And they, of course, like I said, they had a long-established ally with these totalitarian regimes. And then we stem into the break-in where we start getting into World War II, that started the mass murders of the Jews, right? This is something I've had a lot of debate with historians about doctrines in history and all. They have these theories. They always say, when you ask them, like, why was Hitler killing the Jews? They say, there's theories that he was a madman, he had syphilis, he suffered from gonorrhea, he was just a madman, he's trying to tempt God, to make God appear. There's so many theories out there with so-called paper-brain doctorate idiots that know history, and they don't really know. They're just mimicking what they've been told to the redirects. They never actually take the time to do the due diligence. And even some of it, you don't really need to take much time if you just got common sense. Here, take for instance, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany in 1934, right? By 1936-37, he had converted Germany to a socialist state and pretty much bankrupt Germany. They were broke. So let me ask you something. How does a man who's bankrupted his nation, his small little nation, and really doesn't have any means of money, okay, because the world is in a state of chaos. The Muslims are with Hungary and what have you are, there's war going on everywhere, battling where you have the total totalitarian Islamic Muslims trying to take over everybody in world domination. The pursuit of what was taking place still from the Ottoman Empire, World War I, still continued on. It was still going on. This whole thing with Germany was the same players as World War I again, now with Hitler. And Hitler was broke, though. Where did he get the money to finance that war? He got that money from the then existing 6 provinces of the Islamic Muslims. This is why he targeted the Jews. Hitler himself was, he had favoritism with that. Like we know, FDR would never condemn Adolf Hitler. There was conversation that was known to have happened between FDR and Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler, in some of the Hoover files that I remember reading as a kid that's in the Federal Archives, stated very clearly that they were going to charge FDR with treason against this country and aiding and assisting the enemies because of some of the conversation that happened, and also because he was in contempt of the Constitution because he didn't respond to these things in the right way he should have. Hitler made note to FDR that he couldn't be evasive about the issue of them killing the Jews because it was on the same premise of like ethnic cleansing of what Democrats wanted to do with blacks, with the Jim Crow laws, the segregation, Margaret Sanger's Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics, killing off making all of the black women abort their babies. So Hitler knew about these things, and they admired the Democrats' attempted establishment of genocide of the black race here in the United States, where the Democrats had Margaret Sanger aborting them, and they were doing the segregation of them. And Hitler believed that they were doing this to do like what he did, where he would segregate the Jews into a certain area so that he could round them all up and kill them. And that's what he had, and that's why you've never seen FDR ridicule or condemn Hitler, because of that conversation that was known to have taken place in a Hoover file on the FBI about the collaboration of the American Democratic Party with the Nazi Party and the whole genocide thing, and where both were actually exchanging ideas to where the Democrats were looking to seeking out potential ways, and they realized that it would be great if they could form like the Democrats, no joke, during World War II, were eyeing this up to that if they could have the Islamic Muslims and the Nazi Germans succeed and then they form an alliance with them, they could exterminate next the black race. This is no joke. This was the God's honest truth. This is in the Federal Archive files, and many of the Hoover's FBI files were on this thing going on. They knew about it. And as well with Fard, there's an FBI file on the guy Fard, who I'm talking about, who was the founder of the Nation of Islam in America, who was approval through with FDR approving these things to happen, including the governor, too, of Iowa, who allowed the first mosque to be built there, who was a Democrat at the time. So, I mean, these things are just self-evident. Now, we go here, the New Deal with FDR derails many Holocaust rescues. This is another thing of a story that I found of what picks up off of that. This was in the Times of Israel, but it picks off in mentioning some things of what are in that Hoover file, and where I say, he was intentionally aiding and assisting the Nazis in killing the Jews, because he's a Democrat. Okay, and then you got to wake up to reality here, people. Those who are the American people who vote and are in the Democratic Party, look, you need to really pick a history book up and learn the hell of who you're representing. Now, look, if you're a really no-good scumbag, totalitarian, racist, inhumane, POS of a Democrat, and you know what you are, well, that's your thing. No worry, we know who you are. You're the freaking enemy. But if you're an American who thinks the Democrats, the all-inclusive party, and that they're all for the minorities, and they want to help everybody, and they're the humane, look, you need to read a history book and get real and understand you're just an idiot. Okay, and if you want to get real about things, you got to stop being an idiot. You got to read something, learn something, and really reevaluate your values and principle system of being an American, because no Democrat, no true Democrat, of the true founding principle is an American. They never were Americans. They never liked America. The Confederate flag is a Democratic Party flag, and that flag represents a British loyalty flag. The cross is the loyalist of the Tory of Scotland, and the red background is the loyalist flag of Ireland to the kings of Great Britain. That's the Confederate flag. It makes up as a Democratic Party flag. You do understand, if you're a Democrat, you do understand that the Democratic Party is who founded the Confederate slave states and the Confederate Party, right? You do understand that, right? No, you most don't. That's what I'm saying. So if you're a Democrat and you didn't know that the Democrats were the Confederate slave states, you need to stop voting. You need to mind your business. You need to shut the hell up in this country until you learn your place as an American. Because you know what? You're aiding and assisting the enemies if you don't. If you really love America, you really want prosperity, happiness, and the pursuit of happiness, freedom, and liberty for your children, your grandchildren, your posterity, you really want that of what you believe to be the true, of what is the truth of the American principles and values, go learn your place as an American. Before you do anything politically and get involved in anything politically, learn your place first as an American and understand the truth of what you're representing. Because if you're representing the Democratic Party, you're not a goddamn American. You're the enemy within. Because the Democrats are the enemies within, and they've always been the enemies within. And that's a fact. Right here's an article. I'll include the links. And I've had this in other videos I've done where I showed this. Why FDR wouldn't condemn Hitler. This touches on some bases, not as in-depth. I'm trying to find in the historical records of the archives the Hoover file, but it seems they've sealed it. They've sealed it since it happened, which I can see. You know, Democrats, they go in and find out that, you know, the Republicans or even independent research or investigations have found out, and then when they get the presidency in, he can go ahead and seal those things and hide it. That's what they do. This is why a two-party system doesn't work like this. We shouldn't have, we were never, and like you hear Biden right now talking about, oh, you needed to, hey, that guy's an idiot. You remember him with the Declaration of Independence, right? We hold these, you know, the thing, right? This guy's freaking in politics for 47 years. Now he's a president and he doesn't even know the Declaration of Independence. What a disgraceful piece of shit. What a disgraceful, oh my God. But here, U.S. recognition of Israel, this was taking place back in 1948. 1948 was where we gave a recognition as an alliance with Israel to the state of Israel. This was done by Republicans, not Democrats. U.S. presidents in Israel quotes about Jewish homeland in Israel. This right here, I'll include a link. This kind of right here, by reading this, goes from John Adams all the way forward, Abraham Lincoln, Woodrow Wilson, and what have you, Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover, you know, and Franklin Roosevelt, like I'm saying. And you can see just by looking in here, like I say here, you got Franklin Roosevelt with the Balfour Declaration, right, that was done under Woodrow Wilson. You see, they were in support of this for Great Britain and their alliance with that of the Islamic Muslims. They didn't give a damn about the Jewish people, trust me. It had nothing to do with that. And this is the facts of their own words, where they're so two-faced. They speak out of one side, they say one thing to try and hold favor with the public to get the vote, and then on the other side, once they get the vote, they say a whole different thing. And that's like what they're doing today, right? You see how everything's turning their side upward with Joe Biden now. I mean, just a year ago, we were energy independent, like the first time in 50 freaking years, America was energy independent. We weren't relying on foreign. Now, all of a sudden, within a matter of not even 6 months, we're freaking dependent again on Iran and foreign oil. We have, 6 months ago, we had the boom in this economy, greatest job growth, highest employed in the history of the friggin' country. Now we have the highest, I mean, it's just a joke. It's disgraceful what we're allowing to happen in this country. And it's because of all these Dino dumbass Democratic people who are in truth good-natured people. They just don't understand what the hell they're doing. They never took the time to understand who they're representing in the Democratic Party, and they're just being complicit goddamn idiot fools for these Democrats who are trying to ruin this country and have been ruining this country for 244 years. If we get rid of the Democrats, we get rid of 99% of the problems we got in this country. And then as well, if we stop electing nothing but paper-brain educated idiot attorneys in the Republican Party, and we start electing like real Americans who understand reality and get this country going like it was established to be and our founders wanted us to be, we would be really okay again. Hopefully we'll get there without war. But anyway, the Israel-Palestinian conflict, I'm just going to go verbatim off of what I have to say. In basic, what it is the Muslims have convinced a tribal group of people that they are Palestinians and that Allah has given them the right to this land, that they have the right to a state, their own state of the Palestinian state, and they're all Muslims. So, and then, of course, as Muslims, they've been told that Israel, the Jews, are their enemies, and that they have to destroy or kill all the Jews and take their land. So they use them as a proxy to go against them. Now, their claim is that, you know, they have this God-given right that's always been their right, which isn't true. It isn't true. You see, because They believe this under Muslim doctrine, and Islam's only been around for 1,400 years. Judaism has been around for 11,000 years that we know. Well, near 13,000 years of written history we know. 13,000 years the Jews have been around here. They start off with the Hebrews. Abraham was the founder. Abraham was the founder of Israel. Okay, and it was a land, it was a thing promised to them by God near 5,000 years ago. Okay, Palestine's only been formed, I think, in 1984, an actual forming of where it's a recognized even a territory. Which the Democrats, the Democratic Party played in this whole proxy setup with it all. And like I said, if it goes back to the time with the Democrats in the 1970s, Jimmy Carter in the 1970s. I mean, this is a disgrace today that nobody understands. That this goes all the way back, starting with this problem that we're facing today. What we see going on with the Democrats, with Woodrow Wilson, FDR, Jimmy Carter. I mean, it's just been ongoing. It's been ongoing. And like I say, too, you had that senator who did the proxy arming of the Muslims, Charlie Wilson, and they made a movie out of him and they made the guy out to be a goddamn hero, when in truth, he was an espionage freaking terrorist traitor to this country, and he should have been freaking put in prison for what he did. But no, they make him out to be a hero, because when the Democrats are in control, like with Woodrow Wilson, he ran an onslaught with the Ku Klux Klan, killing tens of thousands of blacks across this country, and under the Sedation Act, or what was it? It was like the Sedation Act, where you couldn't say anything about it. He used the World War I to suppress the First Amendment, to where you couldn't have freedom of the press or anything to say anything about the onslaught he was allowing the Ku Klux Klan to do across this country, killing tens of thousands of not just black Americans, but white Republicans. I mean, that supported the black Americans. They were killing us and burning us out. I mean, it was called, go look it up. Go look, Red Summer. Go look up Red Summer of 1918, 1917 to 1918, 1921. It went all the way to 1921. It's disgraceful what the hell happened. But anyway, like the deal that I'm saying, when you look here and you realize this right here is a brief history of Israel and the Jewish people. This here kind of goes back to what I'm talking about. Dates back to tens of thousands of years ago, 10,000 years back, 3,000 years ago, God that did 3,000 years ago, you dig the soil and you find pottery from David, times coins from Bark, and the 2,000-year-old scrolls written, just the history itself gives you a pretty clear understanding of how long Israel and the Jewish people have been around. It's 10,000 years. I mean, it's 10,000 years of written record history that leads all the way back to the Jewish emergence of these people. The Palestinians only emerged since Islam started this thing back in the late 1800s, around 1870, where the Muslims formed a separate sect, kind of like they got Sunni, Shiite, now Palestinian. Okay, it's just another sect that they use to divide and use to pressure on that of the enemies who they declare their enemies, of people they get to sacrifice their lives like the kamikazes that Japan used to do. These people are sending their children and wives and women off to blow themselves up to kill the Jews. It's just a sad, sad state of affairs, what goes on with this inhumane, totalitarian regime of these Islamic Muslims, and the ignorance of people who don't understand it, and how they can't see the reality of what's taking place. It just blows my mind. But anyway, here, the United States and Israel's evolution of an unwritten alliance. Now understand, our alliance with Israel, why we're such allies, is not so much the Democrats but the Republicans. Because, you know what? This nation, when it was founded and the Constitution was actually drafted, there only existed in this country two forms of ideological religion. And that was Christianity and Judaism. There was only there was only synagogues and Christian churches in this country. There was no mosque, there was no Buddhist temples, there was no shrines, or what different kind of ideology things. You know what I'm saying? There was only Jewish temples, and Christian churches. That was it. They were the only two founding establishments of religion in this country when our Constitution was established in 1789 through 1791 with our Bill of Rights. The First Amendment protects only that of established religions in the country at that time. So this is what, now these things change too. Right here we got Barack Obama. This is something I want to say. So where do we actually see the change on the views with Israel to Palestine? Where do we actually see the change where we go from ally with the Israelites and the Jews to where America now is kicking our allies in the face of the Jews and taking sides with the Muslims. When we elected this idiot right here, when we elected this right here, when we elected, he's an Habib. This is called Habib. This is an Islamic slave. He's a good slave. And he does what he's told by the Islamic Muslims. He's a good, and he lies. This guy's a Muslim. Trust me, he's a Muslim. There's no denying this guy's a Muslim. Because no Christian would do what this man did. Matter of fact, no Jew would do what this man did. No human of any level of humanity and knowledge of understanding of truth in God would do what this man did. Because this man is just disgraceful in my book. Okay, he's a disgraceful, no good Islamic Muslim, sympathizing, worthless, disgusting, treasonous traitor to this damn country. And anyone who voted for this man is a goddamn idiot. But that's what happens in this country when you have the right to vote and you're an idiot. Okay, I think we need to have a civics test before you get a voters. I understand you can't discriminate upon the age thing, but we should have a civics test where you have to take a civics test on the history and the founding principles and organization of the American government to get a voter's registration card. And if you can't pass a basic civics test on it, you shouldn't get to vote. That's simple. I'm sorry, because we got idiots voting in this country, and that's how we're winding up in this state. And the Democrats are relying upon those idiots. Matter of fact, they're manufacturing them in their Democratic-controlled districts by the tens of millions right now across this country. It's just disgraceful. But here you have the chronology of here, which I'm going to look right here. I want to show you. Right here was May 19th, Obama became the first U.S. president to officially endorse a two-state solution based on the 1967 borders that was established by the Republicans then to try and keep peace. He was the first president, became the first president to officially endorse a two-state solution. So he allowed, he's the first president as the Americans now, we see this. May 19th, 2008, right? He does this. He's all this time, we stood as allies with Israel. 2011, I'm sorry. I was just wanting to check. It was 2011. I think it was that wasn't his first year, and he waited until his second term was going to be in, and he was going to be good to do this. He sided with the Muslims, and then by him doing this, gave the Muslims a greater feel of power and authority to rise up and attack Israel. And this is what the Democrats always do. And it's what they've been doing. June 6th, the Obama administration held its first high-level meetings with Israeli and Palestinian negotiators in months to restart stalled peace talks. And that's what I'm saying, because he just did it, and this caused a lot of problems. April 27th, Obama signed a waiver to unfreeze a $192 million aid package for the Palestinian Authority. So now we're aiding totalitarian Islamic regimes. Yeah, we're aiding totalitarian Islamic terrorist organization regimes, because that's what the Palestinians are. He's using this is unprecedented in the history of America, and they're doing this through the Democratic Party. March 21st, President Obama met with Israel and Palestinian leaders in Jerusalem and Ramallah. He urged President Abbas to abandon preconditions for restarting negotiations. I mean, I'll include links to these things so you understand there's chronicle history here. The Muslims, you see, the Democrats, like I said, have always been allied with the Muslims because that was who they got all their slaves from when they were the Confederate slave states, the Democrats. And even prior to that, the kings of Britain, that's who they purchased all that. They always had that alliance with them for slave trade. And they have a similar ideology as well. Like with the Democratic Party's Ku Klux Klan, they have the Quran. And the Muslims have the Quran. They have a lot of the same rules, like in the Ku Klux Klan, apostasy is punishable by death. Once you're in, you can't get out after a certain point. Saying that the Muslims have apostasy, once you're in, you can't get out. If you do, you get killed. You're allowed to lie in both organizations, what have you. There's a lot of similarities between these two, because they're both totalitarian terrorist organizations is what they are. But and as we can see right now, Democrats leaning progressive groups line up with Palestinians and against Israel as conflicts rage. You see this? This is unbelievable. Just 6 months ago, everything over there was peaceful. America had no attacks being on us from the Muslims anymore because the Muslims under Obama, from Obama right on up, from 2001, the World Trade Center attack forward, believe it or not, since 1991, over 12,000 Americans killed right here on American home ground. Most of that happened after 9/11. And then forward with Obama, allowing these Muslims coming in by the millions and pretty much telling us they're coming here to kill Americans, and the onslaught on Americans was just unprecedented in the history of our nation, and it was ongoing because we elected a Muslim sympathizer, Barack Obama, as the president. I couldn't believe the Democrats allowed this, but this is what happened. I can't believe the Republicans, a bunch of coward-ass, worthless scumbags, a bunch of ass-sitting, freaking worthless idiots. So the state we're in right now, and even right now, the majority of Republicans, too, you people are goddamn disgraceful, you elected officials, outside of those like Margaret Green and James Jones. Some people, are some good people out there, but man, I'm telling you what, the majority of Republicans, you're a goddamn disgrace to this country. And I'll tell you what, you're all collectively the ass-sitting, worthless, no-good, paper-brain, idiot attorneys who are Republicans and the no-good, treasonous scumbags, enemies within the Democrats. You're the reason God made a hell. And I can assure you that's where you're going, to hell. You're all going to hell because you're just sick, disgusting people. But right here is where we have the progressive group line up with the Palestinians against Israel. The Democrats are doing it again. Joe Biden's doing it again. Like I said, the argument of the Palestinian issue is that they supposedly have a right to this land. They have a right to this by inheritance with God. But this is a lie. The Jews have been around for 10,000 years. Written record shows this. Okay, there's a history goes back to the time of Abraham, with Israel and its land and its nation being formed as, back, like I say, that's like 4,000 or 5,000 years ago. And now Islam's only been around 1,400 years, and it was only in the late 1800s that the Islamic Muslims concocted up this Palestinian tribe of people to create another proxy situation to fight battles and attack the Jews. Okay, and that's Islam, and it's a fallacy. Everything they're being told is a lie. And these people, like I say, you get a generation growing up being indoctrinated with this, they believe it, and they teach that to their kids. The next generation believes it. And that's what it is. These people believe the lie. And they don't realize they're being lied to because it's a total totalitarian regime that controls every aspect of their life. They only can learn, read, see, watch TV, what they're allowed to by the Islamic leaders. Okay, they don't have freedom to go to libraries like we have in America here. They can't just go down and buy books and whatever. Everything that they're allowed to read is approved by the Islamic leaders, and they're indoctrinated only with what those Islamic totalitarian leaders want them to know. And that's all they know. And these people literally, it's horrible what is going on. You go on YouTube, you can pull up videos. These Palestinian mothers and from the indoctrination of the Islamic Muslim leaders, they have them strapping bombs on their own children, little children, and sending them off into groups of Jews to blow them up to kill Jewish people. I mean, it's just horrible, inhumanity of what's taking place, or what these people are doing in this totalitarian Islamic regime. It's just horrible. But we became allies with Israel way, like I say, when we go back, like here, how did the GOP become a pro-Israel party? Well, in truth, we've been pro-Israel, pro-Jew since the founding of our nation, because like I said, when America was founded and we actually drafted our Constitution and then finished out in 1891 with our Declaration of Independence, then it come to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights in 1891, and we had the First Amendment. The First Amendment protected that of only establishments of religion in America. You have legal scholars right now try to twist it around with Thomas Jefferson, that, Thomas Jefferson wanted to include stop with the bullshit. Thomas Jefferson led the first war against the Islamic Muslims. He was not a friend of the Muslims. Okay, he did not have a Quran because he was thinking of converting to Islam, like the bullshit that Obama tries to put. He had the Quran so he could study and learn his enemy, because George Washington during that time, was Thomas Jefferson agreed, declared the Muslims the enemies of all mankind, not just America. And he said, should we ever have a navy and a military strong enough to might, we should wipe them off the face of the earth because they're the enemies of mankind. That's the facts of truth. That's in the Federal Archives of the facts of reality everyone needs to face. These people were declared our enemies with George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison. All declared the Islamic Muslims the enemies of the American people and America. Okay, that's a fact, unquestionable fact. But Israel, with the Jews, have always been an ally with us. Right here, imagining a Judeo-Christian nation. You get the Democrats try to say we're not, and this is something we're just going to touch on real brief, and then I'm going to cut this out because I have to get going. But when we get here, we have the Obama is wrong when he says we're not, because we are. And I just want to go here, the Constitution of the United States right here, First Amendment, shall make no law establishing a religion, right? This is established religions. During a time of when America existed, the establishment of churches in early America were only, as I said before, Jewish synagogues and Christian churches. That was all that was here. They were the only establishments protected by the First Amendment. Okay, separation of church and state never really existed. America was the first Congress and the first Bible. This is something, like I'm going to say, you can do your own due diligence. I have right here something you can watch, a movie that gives you a good thing that was done by Kirk Cameron on this. But the Congress was commissioned to approve the first Bible. That Bible was to be put into every classroom, parish hall, and courtroom across this country. Okay, because we were a Christian founded nation. Right here was the King James Authorized Version, which was issued by the clergy, courts of justice, and education. That was supposed to be put into all the schools. This was in 1777. Okay, and now as we move forward, where you can hear right here, this is the National Monument to the Forefathers. This is something I was talking about just a moment ago. Was Kirk Cameron did a movie on this. In this monument thing, you can see here the prophets of the religion. Okay, and you can also see here wisdom, and where the man has the Bible and the Ten Commandments, which represents that of Christianity in the New Testament Bible, and the Ten Commandments of the Old Jewish, so the alliance of church and state of a Judeo-Christian nation. It's pretty evident within our founding fathers' vision of what was our sustainability as the nation we formed ourselves to be. In our Declaration of, and this is the movie right here, I'll include a link with this, with Kirk Cameron's Monumental. Great movie. I recommend everybody watch this and then do your own due diligence to further your research on it. But the other thing we want to touch on here is the Declaration of Independence. In our Declaration of Independence, we state here that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure, right, but I just want to say, right, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that when any form of government becomes obstructed to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But the main part of what I want to get to right up here is the top part here. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate but equal stations to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. So understand, in the Declaration of Independence, we are a nation that's being formed under the laws of nature by nature's God. The self-evident laws that, pretty much, and that's what it is, they're self-evident. I'm going to do another video completely on this specific topic and my vision of it, and I would like to get some public input from some people on this, including so-called legal scholars, if you wish to. But then, the other thing I would like to say is this. Our Constitution of the United States, we talk about church and state being separate, but let me tell you something. The founders of our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, the people who drafted these documents and formed our country, they understood that when they wrote something and they stated something, they only want to be, they didn't want to be repetitive like me. I'm very bad at that. I repeat things a lot. But they pretty much, when they state something, they state it, and it broad, it blankets everything. And the United States Constitution itself is ratified in the name of Jesus Christ. And it seems nobody's even aware of this. Nobody's even aware that the entire Constitution is ratified in the name of Jesus Christ, which establishes us as a Christian-founded nation, which establishes that all of our laws in this nation, because this is the law of the land, is ratified under that of the order, principles, values, and morals of that of Jesus Christ. And how do we know this? Because you know what? All you got to do on here is search for Lord. And there it is. It's only one time in the Constitution. And it's in the very last paragraph of the Constitution. So if you don't read the whole Constitution, every word, you skip that last paragraph, you miss it. Because right here it says, the ratification of conventions of the United States are sufficient for the establishment of this Constitution between the states so ratified the same, done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states represented the 17th day of September in the year of our Lord, 1787, and of the independence of the United States of America, the 12th, in witness whereof we have hereunto subscribed our names. You see that? In the name of our Lord. That's Jesus Christ. So to hold that right there, that one statement, and that one statement ratifies the entire Constitution under the principles, morals, and values of Christianity. We are a Christian-founded nation. It's undeniable. I know the Democrats don't like to hear it. I know that them no good, perverted, disgusting, inhumane people like to divide this nation and cause all kind of problems. But look, the facts are the facts. And when you look in and indulge in the truth, let me tell you, the way they confound some of our founding fathers like Thomas Jefferson and stuff with his religious beliefs. You know, there's a young Thomas Jefferson where he's very naive, and you know, there's an older, wiser Thomas Jefferson. And we see the progression of maturity with him, and George Washington plays a big role in maturing James Madison and Thomas Jefferson in their understanding of who our enemies are, and their misconceptions of understanding the difference between true religion of God and that of foreign totalitarian ideologies masking as God and religions. And this is important that we understand. But like I said, that's pretty much what I want to conclude with. I'll include links to all these things I include, and I hope you guys find it all interesting and go forward. And again, like I say, my condolence to all the lost members of our military that have given their life for all of our freedom and liberty. God bless them. May God give them an eternity of peace and contentment, and joy in watching, and hopefully they get to look down and see those of us who are grateful for the sacrifice they made. And our condolence goes out to the family of those of lost ones, and as well those who have lost recently ones, and those forward who may lose others who are out there right now putting their life on the line and may lose their life in the pursuit of protecting us, the American people. May God bless you all always, and thank you for that service. Thank you to the families of those who lost. Thank you for your family member service. God bless, and have a great Memorial Day, everybody. And God bless America, the greatest nation in the world that ever stand. God bless every true American. And God loves me. God loves you. God loves America. And I know we're going to get through all this insanity. So thank you. And until next time, when I do my next video, everybody have a great weekend. And I will see you next time.